Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. This is Julia Talbot. I'm from the Department of Family and Support Services, and I am welcoming you to the Youth Enrichment Summer Program RFP webinar for those who are interested in making an application to run that program. This RFP was released on February 14th. It is due on March 21st, and we are here together to share some time and to learn about this program, and if it's a good fit for your organization. This is your time to ask questions. A little bit of housekeeping. Due to the volume of participants, everyone has been placed on mute. If you have questions, put them in the question box. If you have technical problems, put those in the question box and we'll figure it out. We're gonna break for questions. You can put your questions in anytime, but we're breaking for questions, and we'll do question and answer verbally at the midpoint at the presentation after we're done with the program part, and at the end of the presentation after I've talked to you a little bit about how to physically make the application in the e-procurement system, which is the city's online procurement system. Just so that you know, and it always comes up, this webinar is being recorded. A copy of the recording will be posted on the DFSS YouTube channel with a link to the recording and a PDF of these slides on the DFSS webpage, and there's the link for you. Look under the alerts or funding opportunity tabs and look for this particular RFP. We always want to get these up as quickly as possible, but give us at least up to 5 business days before you start, writing to your alderman about it. Or just give me a line. It just takes a couple of days for the file that we get from this website, the webinar website, to be translated and posted onto the YouTube page, and then get that link posted. Sometimes I have it a couple of days before, but anyway, I digress. Here's our agenda. I am joined here today by Ms. Elizabeth Bukwa, who's a youth service coordinator, and with Maria Guzman-Roca, who is the manager of family and support services for us. You might have caught them on other webinars, and thus so far. I see here we already have a question. Can I post the link to the slides in the chat? No, I can't, because there isn't a link to the slides yet. It will be posted on the DFSS website under the funding opportunity associated with this RFP. So that will be posted, and as I said, 3 to 5 business days. So let's just get started, and I'm going to have Maria start us off, and let's learn about this awesome program to provide summer youth services to the children of Chicago.
Thank you, Julia. Thanks so much for the introduction. Hi, everyone. As Julia mentioned, my name is Maria Guzman-Rocha. I am the director over the enrichment portfolio. And within that portfolio, we have our summer programming. And we're really excited to release the RFP for the summer programs under the enrichment portfolio. As you all see on the screen here, we are looking to provide funding to delegates to implement safe, supportive, interactive, and engaging youth development activities. For those of you who have applied or have been funded for the year-round and school year RFPs, a lot of this will be familiar, but this RFP and the RFP we have released for the CHA summer program are specifically for summer programming. So just to ensure that everyone that is here is in the right place, you are at the webinar for the summer enrichment RFP, which will provide programming during the summer. We will go through some of the requirements in a little bit, but I do want to start off with highly recommending that if you are interested in applying for this RFP and you are new to the RFP process or to being funded by DFSS, that you read the RFP. We put a lot of work into ensuring that program requirements are very clear and that agencies or that respondents know what the RFP is for and what it will be funding. So we highly encourage you to read it, and please send us any questions after you've read it that may not be clear. If you have read it already and you're ready with questions, please submit those in the question box. So the goal of the program is to provide youth with meaningful and enriching programming. All of this programming that we're going to be doing with summer delegates, the intention really is to get young people to feel safe and supported by these trained practitioners, and that the programming builds and reinforces social, emotional, and cognitive skills, and that they get an opportunity to have positive relationships and experience belonging with peer and adults, in addition to providing them with leadership opportunities. I'm not going to read this slide because I'd be preaching to the choir, but just as a highlight of background information for this RFP, we all know that participation in out-of-school time programs fosters development of young people, right? They are building self-concept. They are really gaining skills in problem solving and decision making, interpersonal skills, higher sense of belonging and connectedness, et cetera, et cetera. And there are many protective factors that participation in out-of-school time programs provides young people, such as fewer problems in childhood and adolescence, lowered rates of substance abuse, fewer problem behaviors, and improved performance in school. So we are really looking to ensure that programs that apply or agencies that apply for programming really understand the benefits and the protective factors of programming on young people. And in knowing the many of the situations that young people in our city face, we want to ensure that folks are utilizing the evidence base that's out there around youth development and out-of-school time programming to align their practices in their programs. These bullet points here around current state are data that have come out of the 2022 summer programs. So we are funding a new set of agencies that are going to be running programs starting this year, but we have data from the last program cycle. And so you can read this when the slides are shared out, but one of the things to highlight is the second bullet point, that out of over 1,500 youth that were surveyed in summer of 2022, 84% reported having a positive relationship with an adult, 88% reported feeling more hopeful about the future, and 77% reported the program helping to strengthen or build new friendships. So we see a lot of really great data in terms of the program aligning with some of the evidence base that I talked about earlier, and getting young people to really engage in the program through these experiences is really important, and it's being highlighted in some of the data that we're seeing. In terms of priorities for improvement, you see the bullet points here. Like I mentioned before, we want to make sure that the program design is aligned with research and youth development and out-of-school time programming, that we are prioritizing enrolling underserved youth and ensuring appropriate support services, and that we are also ensuring that programming is focused and developmentally appropriate, so that young people, if you have young people that you're serving that are younger, that the activities are not the same, essentially, as those that are maybe in high school, that you're taking that into account, and then always wanting to prioritize continuous improvement, focusing on using data to make programmatic decisions. And data can look a lot of different ways, but just really ensuring that everyone is looking at what is happening now and how can we utilize that for continuous improvement. So in terms of target population for programming for summer, it's very similar, like I said before, it's very similar to the school year and year-round programming. We are looking to serve 715 youth from the city of Chicago across the city, as long as they're Chicago residents between the ages of 6 to 21. And once young people are being enrolled in the program, there is a consent process for young people under the age of 18. And the second bullet here around identifying with underrepresented populations is what I mentioned around the school year and year-round program. Across all of our enrichment programs, we are looking to see that at least 50% of program participants identify with at least one of these underrepresented populations. And this is across the board in our youth division. We want to make sure that our programs are supporting underserved populations. Sorry, Julia, one thing in the slide that I just mentioned, or that I just looked through with the underrepresented populations. One question that has come up before in previous webinars and for previous RFPs is around the second bullet point of the level 2, 3, or option schools based on the SQRP or SQR policy for CPS. We realize that CPS is no longer using this policy. So if you utilize this link, you will get the list from 2019, and we are still utilizing that list until CPS comes out with another one. So summer programs can exist within schools, obviously, or outside of schools. But if you are serving young people in school, in these schools, it is fine to go with the list from 2019. A couple things to highlight from this slide. So again, this is summer programming, so it is a lower rate per youth slot compared to the other enrichment programming. It's $1,200 per youth, and we are looking to fund 715 youth. There is a minimum cohort requirement of 30 youth, so any respondent that applies must serve at least 30 young people. And if you wish to serve more, there is an added cohort of 15. So you'd serve 30, 45, 60, etc. Nothing in between that. And then in terms of program dosage, this is essentially program operation hours. Programs must offer a minimum of 120 programs, or 120 hours, of programming for the summer between June and August. So that comes out to about 20 hours a week for at least 6 weeks. And we're looking to do that to align to the CPS summer break, but acknowledging that not all programs serve young people from CPS schools. And hours may include evenings and weekends. And then the program completion goal is what we call youth dosage. That we're looking for young people to participate at least 96 hours a summer. That is a typo, so we will make sure to fix that. That's 96 hours a summer. These are general requirements across all of our enrichment programs. So we will ask in the application what age groups you're serving. You may select multiple age groups. We will ask that you acknowledge the staff to youth ratio. So we're looking for 2 staff for every group of 30 young people. And I mentioned the program requirement already, at least 50% of youth identify with these target populations. We are also asking that programs select a primary program specialty area. The intention behind this is to group agencies together based on their program specialty areas once agencies are contracted. So if you do arts and culture, but also do academic tutoring and college and career, just when you select, think about the one that you do most and that you are trying to focus most on this summer. And then program components, these are just youth development best practices in out of school time. So we will be asking questions in the application about how you plan to address these in your programming. In terms of program, I'm going to pass it on to Liz now.
So the program requirements continue here. So we want the delegates and agency to be ready to recruit, hire, and manage program staff. Hopefully we want to have 1 staff per 15 youth. Of course, we want staff members who are hired to be positive, enthusiastic, of course, have a connection to the community, and ensure that program objectives are being met, including, in addition to having administrative functions as well, data entry and data collection. And of course, we require staff that are hired to love and practice positive youth development. And you can see examples of those type of roles on the RFP itself on page 13. As you can see, there's a lot of program requirements, so we got to make sure we get those things done. We want people to have background checks, of course, mandated reporting, CPR training as well. Of course, you have to enter any documentation enter in our database. We do have use CityScan as our database for compliance as well. So that's something you will be getting notification about if you were to be selected as one of the agencies to receive this, be a part of this program. We also have our program staff to participate in DFS sponsored learning meetings, and some of the learning things that you'll probably experience those type of discussions is youth development, best practices in youth development, professional development. It is these particular things to like make sure you guys are in that and like make sure you guys are in tune on what's going on to like make sure the youth are getting what they need out of the program and get the program. And of course, if you have anything to have, we know that changes happen. So if you have any programmatic changes, we do encourage agencies to notify your YSC, your youth service coordinator, and of course the director if you have any changes in staff or facility or any type of location. We also want to have program written procedures, and we are required to have those written procedures for identifying, reporting suspected child abuse or any emergency procedures like lost child or any injury that might happen during programming. We do know that accidents do happen, so those procedures do need to be written down so that we know what's actually going on. We know what actually what you need to do to move forward in those type of situations. And we also have program closeout procedures. Those procedures must be followed if DFSS is funding agencies for any closing for any reason. And we have our program goals and outcomes. So of course, we want to track the successfulness of programming and make sure that these particular goals are achieved. These are just our metrics. Of course, you can include your own metrics, but this is what we are going by with these bullet points about what's necessary to do for meet certain requirements and achieve certain outcomes and goals. The next bullet point talks about monitoring and recognizing intermediate progress for the above performance indicators. As you can see, 90% of youth slots to be filled at any given time. 50% of youth meet the target population criteria. Or the last one, 85% of youth complete the summer program for the summer, and it's like attend at least 96 hours a year. So we would need these particular metrics to be met. And of course, like I said, you can incorporate your own. Okay, so we have the guidance for agencies. So RFP, so when you're applying for the RFP, you have to make sure you're in a particular Health Chicago equity zone. And there are 6 equity zones: North Central, Northwest, West, Far South, Near South, and Southwest. And you must submit 1 application per Health Chicago equity zone. So if you have a physical address in one of these multiple equity zones, you must submit an application for each equity zone that you're applying for. So as the bottom states, you have to seek funding for multiple sites in different Health Chicago equity zones are required to apply for each zone separately. And here is a chart of the equity zones. So you see here Northwest, North Central, West, Southwest, Near South, and Far South. And toward the left in the chart, you can see the different neighborhoods in which each equity zone represents. So you see North Central is like Park, West Ridge, and you have West, which is Humble Park, West Town. Far South, Burnside, Roseland. So this, if you're a part of those particular neighborhoods, you will identify in those particular equity zones. And here we have as guidance respondents continues, we have a chart to just give you an idea of how we're going to be distributing funds. So we have it broken down by youth population needs and demonstrated by historical data of youth served from the 2021 Enrichment program. So as you can see, we are going to do 715 total youth slots, and this how it will be distributed in the particular equity zone. And in the last column, you can see the anticipated number of selected agencies. So we're going to have 1 to 2 agencies in the Far South, 1 to 3 in Near South, 1 to 2 in North Central, 1 to 2 in Northwest, and so forth and so forth. So as you can see in this chart, you can see how we're kind of distributing funds and making sure that everything's equitable and particular regions are getting the amount of slots that is equitable, like I said before. We do encourage people to collaborate in order to allow agencies to subcontract and expand in order to just network and deliver programming. So of course, you have to do the budget when it comes to the request proposal. and with an RFP budget with a rate of $1,200 per youth, with a minimum of 30 youth per program, and additional increments of 15 youth. The anticipated cost for school year program for the minimum is going to be $36,000. This right here is an example budget. So you can see, just like this is something. This would be a particular breakdown of how your budget might look if you were to apply to this particular program. This is how it might look this way, but we will see that this particular budget is how something, it could be something similar. So the terms of the contract as executed under this RFP will be from May 1st to May 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024. And admin costs will be capped at 15% per application, and all respondents must be able to demonstrate a minimum of 15% in kind match. We would like to submit a budget for one program cycle of funding. We just want you to be very thoughtful when it comes to your budgeting. We want to make sure that it makes sense and it aligns to the program that you are submitting. Now, of course, we are all human and make mistakes. So these are kind of common errors that we see in budgets. Fringes, so you will check your calculations, supplies. They're sometimes over budget. Make sure you show your match, and also read the budget instructions carefully. There's a lot of instructions, so we understand that mistakes happen, but we do want to make sure that you are prepared and you do understand these common mistakes. So it's something you can avoid, and it can just not delay the process.
Liz.
I think I'm gonna pass back over to Maria.
Yes, thank you, Liz. A couple of things that I wanted to mention, as Liz covered the terms of contract within the budget and the contract itself. This is, like I mentioned before, summer funding. So the contract lasts 2 years, as she stated, May 23 to December 24, but the programming is supposed to happen in the summer. And your budget term will be between, I believe, May and October. So you have to spend the funds within the summers. So you won't have to submit additional contract paperwork this year for those agencies that are selected. So this is a little bit different for those of you who have received summer funding before. The contract term has been pretty much the same as like our year-round programs or our school year programs. But there are caveats now to tailor this for specifically for summer programming and when summer programs can spend their money. So just wanted to make sure before we move that. Selection criteria, moving on to that. One other thing to highlight is we have put our key pages on the upper right-hand corner of each of the slides so that you know where to turn to in the RFP of what we are addressing in these slides. The selection criteria is essentially the questions that you're going to be answering and how they will be scored. So every one of these points is aligned to a question, and this is really what we're looking for when we're looking at the evaluation proposals. Our evaluation committees or reviewers will look to see that each of these questions is addressed. So again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but just so you all, so we pull out some of the highlights. Under community involvement, we're looking for respondents to demonstrate a clear understanding of the young people in their equity zone in which they're proposing their program location. So you should be able to highlight what kinds of young people you're going to be serving, their needs and challenges, as well as their strengths and opportunities. We've seen many a times where agencies will utilize proposals from other program models or from previous years, and we'll just copy and paste. I understand being efficient with time, but we are really looking to know that agencies are reading through the questions and being thoughtful in their responses. So it's one of the things that is really important for us as we review these RFP applications. In terms of organizational capacity, one of the biggest things that we're looking for here is that respondents demonstrate that program staffing is sufficient for the level of services proposed. So are there enough staff if you're proposing to serve 150 young people, for example, do you have enough staff? Are they qualified, culturally competent, and or reflective of the communities that you're serving? Do you have adequate systems and processes to support expenditures and fiscal controls? And then the HR capacity to hire and manage staff. This is the section that has the most points. So this is where we are seeing, the richest responses, hopefully, providing clear connections between what you are intending to do in your activities and the outcome goals of the RFP. Are you looking to provide programming that's safe, supportive, engaging? We want to make sure that these things align. Are you providing a clear and specific description of how the program is going to incorporate each of the program components that's outlined in the RFP? And that's referenced in one of the earlier slides where we're looking for programs to really follow youth development and other full-time best practices. Are respondents describing that they're going to ensure that program activities are developmentally appropriate for the age groups they propose to serve? So someone asked earlier, can we have a mix of ages, or do we need to do cohorts for each of the age groups? No, you don't need to have a mix. You can serve all 30 young people between the ages of 18 and 21, or you can do, 15, 6 to 10-year-olds and another 15, 14 to 17-year-olds, as long as you're able to describe how you're going to align your activities to be developmentally appropriate for each of those age groups. And then in terms of performance management and outcomes, many times we have new programs applying or new agencies or new entities applying, and that's great. We do want to know if there has been some evidence of strong past performance in the same or similar programs against the desired outcome goals that was mentioned earlier. So have folks obtained data before for that program or for other programs that are similar to it, because we are asking that agencies meet those requirements from those outcome goals. And then other information around data collection, systems, and processes that's important in order to work within our systems. And as Liz mentioned, the section around reasonable cost, budget justification, and leverage of funds is really ensuring that your budget is aligning, that you are demonstrating that you have the costs and the funding to run these programs. This is a reimbursement contract. We have put out a couple of RFPs in the past for other funding that is cash advance. This is not a cash advance program. This is just reimbursement funding. I will let you read this this slide. This is just around attachments. Make sure, please, that if you are applying, that every attachment is included in your application, that you review that, that you can include reports or studies or other documents that show performance. That's a really big plus. And including resumes for key staff or job descriptions is really important as well. All right, just a couple of more slides. Basis of award, this is essentially how we select our agencies once, or our delegates once evaluations are completed, once our evaluation groups complete their reviews. We may consider additional factors in selecting to ensure that we are meeting the need out there. So we can look at geography, program specialty area, and ability to serve the specific subpopulation. So I talked about the target populations earlier. And we're going to make recommendations for contract awards within each equity zone, ensuring that we're balancing out location, target population, age group, and program specialty area. So what we do is we evaluate applications by equity zone. We look at all of the applications in the West, all of the applications in the Southwest, et cetera, because we do have a goal of youth slots per equity zone. All right, so this is just a reminder of the timeline. Today's proposal webinar, our applications are due March 21st at noon. Julia will say this a couple times, and I'll say it on the next slide again. There are no extensions. It is an electronic application. And so we highly, highly, highly encourage all applicants to submit their application the latest the day before, just to ensure there are no glitches or no issues with the system. There's not much we can do the hour before or the minute before the deadline if you are having technical issues. And Julia will reiterate that in her section. Again, the budget period is what I mentioned before. It begins May 1st as you anticipate going through hiring of staff and preparing for programming. The budget period is different than the contractual period, and all spending must happen by, I believe it's October 1st, but that information will be shared in the amendment so you can plan around that. And then the programming period is what I mentioned earlier, 120 program hours for 6 weeks between June and August. That is the minimum. You can operate 9 weeks and spread those 120 program hours between 9 weeks. That's great if you decide to do that, but that information should be included in the proposal. All right, applications are due March 21st. And that is a Tuesday, March 21st.
So we're going to take a little bit of a breather now to look at the questions. There have been quite a number of questions in the chat, and I know, Maria, you have answered some of those questions. But so maybe you could give us some. We could go through the highlights on those questions, and then we'll go to the ones that haven't been answered yet. Is that okay? I see here it's sort of there were some questions about deliverables, such as a minimum of 30. Is it different? The deliverable amounts. Are there any changes in the way that in the kind of youth that this program is supposed to serve? Can you do, if you are a year-round provider, can you also do a summer program? Let's just get into it.
Sure. So in terms of the minimum of 30 youth, yes, that is different. It is in all of our enrichment portfolio RFPs, or has been a minimum cohort of 30 youth. This is for our year-round, summer, and school year programs. Our CHA summer program and year-round program, the minimum there is a cohort of 20 youth. So yes, that is different. Are there requirements on the ways in which we identify? This was around the target population. The idea is that when youth are being enrolled, once delegates are funded, that they will identify which target populations the youth belong to or identify with. If you have year-round DFSS funding, you can also apply. Yes, you can apply for summer programming for the same sites as long as it is a different group of youth. So this is not combination funding. This is stated in the RFP that you can apply the same thing for school year. You can apply with a different group of young people. I addressed the ratio issue, so we're just looking for minimum cohort, and then you can split that up between the age groups as you would like. The 120 hours, it's 120 hours for a minimum of 6 weeks between June and August. There is no...
You couldn't do 5 weeks.
That... Oh, I missed what you said.
Oh, no, there's a question here about could you do the 120 hours in 5 weeks instead of 6?
No, it's a minimum of 6 weeks. There is a question around stipends. That is correct. There's no stipend for summer participants, or enrichment summer participants. There are incentives allowed, and we will add in. There's a max percentage of your budget that can be allotted for incentives. So we will share that in the amendment.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but if you were a CYSC provider, giving stipends, could you double enroll your kids? Could you put them in a CYS kit, C-kit, and then an enrichment program?
So we don't recommend that. I mean, we're not going to prohibit that, but we don't recommend that because what we're looking to do is broaden our reach of young people. CYSC programming is year-round, so technically, as long as the programming that they're involved in the summer is not overlapping with the CYSC programming that they're doing. But again, it's year-round, so I would imagine that it will overlap.
So then we're getting down into, should our organizations be located within one of the equity zones, or does it mean that the majority of our participants come from one of the equity zones?
Yes, one of the requirements is that if you are applying for a certain equity zone, that you demonstrate a physical location in that equity zone. You can recruit young people from that equity zone, and if other young people come from other equity zones, that's sort of outside of our control, but we do want agencies or respondents to demonstrate a physical location within the equity zone for which they are applying.
And is it $36,000 per summer, or is that over 2 summers?
It's $36,000 per summer. A minimum of $36,000 per summer. You can apply for more.
Which data system will we enter for? These participants if we already received OST funds?
We'll be using CitySpan. These summer programs will be designated as summer programs different from other program models.
And is the budget part of the application, or only after, or is it due only after we are potentially awarded the amount?
The budget, it's a sample budget that agencies will be submitting. So to ensure that respondents understand the different categories and that they have been thoughtful about the kinds of materials or supplies or staffing that they're going to be using. So the budget that is submitted is not the budget that you are committing to if you respond, but it is part of the application.
And you should submit a budget that you would be willing to commit to.
Right.
I see the requirement for background checks in the slides. We employ several staff members with backgrounds as we work with system-impacted youth, and their lived experience builds credibility with the target population. Are staff with certain criminal backgrounds able to deliver this program, or is that prohibited?
Staff need to pass a background check. That's just part of our entire division requirements, at least within the enrichment portfolio.
Refer to agency in your details. Are agencies the only entities that may apply in this issue?
No, there are multiple categories. I just say agency because that's what we utilize the most, but I should be saying respondents. And so if you look in the RFP, you can see what other types of organizations. It's 501c3.
But just to clarify, we do not anticipate making this award for this program to say an individual.
Oh, correct. That is correct.
When you review the attachments, I am not clear what we needed for an MOU or linkage agreements, and then there was another attachment related to CPS. So that the CPS vendor attachment is something that we tend to get questions on. I don't know if you want to go into that in greater detail, Maria, or if you want me to. I don't have a lot to say.
MOUs or linkage agreements are highly encouraged if you are collaborating with another organization to provide additional services, and if your programming is located within a school, we do require a CPS vendor confirmation letter or document, or a letter of intent from the school principal. So this being summer, I can see some programs could be within schools, but most won't. But if you are proposing to be in a school, you should be providing a vendor confirmation letter or a letter of intent.
Are organizations able to recruit participants, or will they have to pull them from city spans similar to the One Summer Chicago programs?
Organizations are able to recruit their own participants. We are not pulling them.
If you didn't have participants and you wanted to pull from city span, could you?
No, the databases are not linked.
But this is, so you are on, so all the applicants should understand that they are responsible for recruiting their participants in entirety. So essentially, each participant is completing 3.2 hours in a day in programming in order to meet the minimums.
You can divide, yes, respondents can divide the 120 hours as they wish. So we don't have a minimum per week or per day because we understand that programming happens differently. There may be, a STEM program that someone is proposing to be 4, 5, 6 hours a week or on a Friday or something like that. So the 120 hours can be spread out across those 6 weeks as the respondent wishes. It doesn't need to be per day or even per week. There was one you skipped, Julia, about is the grant given for each summer? Yes, you would propose a number of youth slots for each summer. So if you receive funding for 45 young people in 23, that is the same amount of funding that will be received in 24.
And now here's there are 2 questions here about background checks. So it's, how do we lower barriers to reaching some of the populations we should be serving, i.e. background checks, complex onboarding processes? And then there's also, if you have a person on staff who cannot pass a background check, what is the process with that person?
So in terms of the first question, I'm not sure, I'm guessing they're talking about the staff versus the young people, because we don't expect young people to pass background checks. But I'm guessing it's around the staff. And then in terms of the person not passing the background check, that is something that we need to discuss. All staff, it is a requirement because we are serving young people. It is a requirement across the board and we're following best practice. So it's certainly something that we can discuss, but there should be other staff members, obviously, who do pass the background check.
Does this information apply to both DFSS, CHA, and OST programs? I am new.
No, we have a CHA webinar, CHA summer webinar happening tomorrow. So we invite you to attend that. The requirements are a little bit different. And the area served is by community area for CHA. Out of school time is equity zones, and the target populations are different as well.
Are churches allowed to apply if they keep religion separate?
As long as they are meeting the requirements, yes. We have a few churches already, or religious organizations already as part of our portfolio.
Just to be clear, even though the work must be completed in the summer, the budget period we provide can go through from May 1st to October 31st.
I believe it's May 1st through September 30th, but I will verify that, and that will be included in the amendment, which is the what Julia will talk about. It's the publication that comes out clarifying some of the questions that have come through in the webinar and via email.
What if we don't hit the minimum? Will we only be paid a prorate?
No, every agency is vouchered for the services that they provide. It's a reimbursement contract, so whatever it is that the services are provided and they voucher for, that is what they are paid for. And if it aligns, especially if it aligns with young people. So if you are serving 0 young people, there is nothing to voucher, just making sure that we are hitting those targets.
This grant is for the summer of 2023 and the next summer of 2024. Yes, it is. Where can we get more information about the CHA? This is your chance to pitch it.
We have a CHA webinar happening tomorrow. We'll throw the link in the chat, but it is tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 12 noon.
It's going to be great. You think this webinar is fun? You just wait till tomorrow. It's going to be a Friday webinar. Do all participants need to be recruited specifically from the identified health equity zone, or can we recruit citywide?
The requirement is for the physical location of the program being proposed to be within the equity zone. Recruitment can happen citywide, but you are proposing to serve a certain equity zone. So highly encourage that respondents or programs are recruiting for that, mainly for that equity zone.
For now, the last question says, a part of the grant states that students have a full onboarding process. We partner with CPS, and CPS requires anyone entering to be background checked.
A little bit confused.
Jackson, could you maybe clarify what you're asking? CPS does require that everybody entering the building be background checked. And I don't know if you meant that CPS also has an onboarding process, or you could use maybe a little bit of clarification on what your question is there. So, our organization is on the border of North Central and Northwest. Our participants mostly come from Northwest. Is there a place in the application where we can discuss this?
Yes, but the physical location that is provided in the physical site location that is provided, or the address, I should say, that's provided in the application will be geocoded. So if an agency proposes one equity zone and their site location that is geocoded goes into another equity zone, we will send a letter to clarify. I will throw a link here in the chat where agency or respondents can check themselves. It's also in the RFP. You can check yourself for yourself, but the physical address or the physical address within that system, and it will tell you which equity zone you are in.
And is food for the youth an allowable cost on a budget item or budget?
It is. If you look at the sample budget there, that is in there. It we just have requirements as to what it's called once it is submitted as an actual budget. But yes, food for participants is an allowable cost.
Good news. So many of our funding sources don't allow food as an allowable cost, and if there's one way to get youth or people in general through a door, it's to offer them food. So I think we have answered so many questions. They're all awesome. This is great. You guys are always, I love doing the youth webinars because there's always so many great questions. They're waiting for the CHA link. And what about the stipend situation? And then we're going to break, and I'm going to talk to you about how to make an application in the e-procurement environment. And then we can take more questions if you have it, but why don't we go with what about the stipend situation? If you wanted to just answer that, Maria.
There are no stipends allowed. You may provide incentives as part of your budget. There is a maximum amount that can be allotted for incentives, and that information will be shared out in the amendment.
So thank you. And with that being said, I think we're going to move on here. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how to make an application in the City of Chicago's e-procurement environment. So if you are new to the City of Chicago's e-procurement experience, I'm going to suggest that you start early. Actually, even if you're not new, I'm going to suggest that you start early too. And I'm going to suggest that you save often, because that's my mantra. I don't have a tattoo, or I don't have a tattoo yet, but I am seriously considering I was to get one, it would say start early, save often. When we use the words e-procurement and iSupplier fairly interchangeably here, but technically an iSupplier account is what you as a potential vendor uses to access e-procurement. The e-procurement system is where we do our RFPs. It's a cradle to grave procurement system. And so it's going to be where you submit your applications for funding. It's where if you were awarded, you're going to download your stuff, your budget stuff, and your contract for us will be done in part in the e-procurement environment. And that is where you're going to voucher for payments and reimbursement. So it's great. It's a great place to hang out. It's not necessarily the most, I'm trying to think of the word, but it's not always the most intuitive system I've ever used, but it does do the job. If you're not already in there, be forewarned that with like many things in government, you fill out a form and it's going to maybe take a couple of hours or a few days for you to get back the response so that you can start your iSupplier account. Also be warned that sometimes stuff from iSupplier or eProcurement will end up in your spam or junk folders, so be sure to check there as well. As Maria said earlier, when you're looking to start your application, please consider reading the RFP documents that we have attached in the application as an attachment. Look at the narrative or the scope, look at the program requirements, look at the selection criteria, look at your application questions. All of these things are they're linked together. We draw our application from our application questions out of the scope and requirements. We draw our selection criteria out of the scope and requirements. We develop our evaluation instruments to review your applications with out of the scope and the requirements and the selection criteria. It's all connected. So if you're kind of at a crossroads wondering what we were thinking or what we might want, look at those narratives. I understand that they are dense documents. I understand that maybe they're not the most exciting reads you have ever encountered, but they are very informative and they are helpful, and they are out there to be informative and helpful so that you make a better application. You can make a better decision if this is the right funding for you, and all of those things. They're there for you. If you are contemplating submitting more than one proposal, such as you want to provide services in 2 distinct equity zones, you're going to need to do 2 applications, and each application or proposal is going to have to be submitted into iSupplier, or it's going to be submitted to us in a separate, unique, registered account with a user with online bidding responsibilities within your organization's iSupplier account. So you are not going to make 2 iSupplier accounts. It's going to go in one, but you're going to have 2 different account users. So it's going to be like Bert and Ernie. You can have it go to the bertnerdy at gmail.com website or email address. You can have the same email address, but it has to be one as Bert and one as Ernie. And you're going to have to make your application for Northwest with Bert and North Central with Ernie. If you do both of them with Bert, the system will do it. It will accept it. But what will happen is that it writes over whatever application you put in. So you're going to I put in North Central, I click submit. Yay, I'm done. And then you forget and you go into the same Bert account and you put in for South Central or Southwest and you hit submit. It will just be like, oh, look, they amended the application. We're amending the application. It will just write over your old application. It's not going to register too. This happens a lot, and it's always very sad because we can't accept both applications. The system that we're working in really is quite strict about those kinds of things. The deadlines are hard deadlines. We don't mean 1201, and we don't mean try because you missed the deadline. We cannot accept late applications. Only way we can accept a late application is that we start all over. We re-release the RFP. We tell everybody who applied they have to reapply. We start all over. And we really, 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 really don't like doing that. So don't be late. Get it in on time, get it in a day early, and have it be a relaxing, pleasant experience as opposed to a stress fest. And so that's kind of my rant on that. Review the application questions and make sure you fully answer all of the questions. Understand that there's a 4,000 character limit per question in the e-procurement environment, and that includes punctuation and spelling. The e-procurement environment or the e-procurement program is not going to count that for you. So I tell you to please write your application questions in a word processing software package that will do that count for you, and then paste it in. Additionally, when you hit submit, it's going to take away your application and you're not going to see it again. You can get a PDF of it and I'll show you where to do that in when I go through some of our screenshots, but you're not going to have access to your application very easily. So you really want to have a hard copy in your files outside of your e-procurement or iSupplier account. It will make your life easier. We have awarded people who then had to request their applications from us, and we were happy to do it for them. But that's always just a weird conversation to have with with your new funder, right? Nobody wants to do that. So save, submit early, start and save often, and keep hard copies of this stuff out of your e-procurement account or your iSupplier account so that you have all of the information that you need. Additionally, e-procurement is not going to spell check for you, really. And always remember to attach all of your attachments. We tend to have prompts for that, but please, we do look at the attachments, and if they're not there, that is not a good look. Don't use the back button on your browser while you're completing the application, because that will cause e-procurement to stop saving your work, but not telling you. And then when you go to save it, it will give you an error message, throw you out. And when you go back in, none of your work from the time you hit the back browser button will have been saved, and you'll have to redo stuff. And that is also sad. As Maria said, please don't wait until the last moment to submit your application. Late applications are not accepted. You can submit your application and amend it up until the due date and time. And I tell people to avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting early, and to plan on taking the submission taking 30 to 60 minutes. I am also going to say there were quite a number of people who had signed up for this webinar and who are attending this webinar. That is due on the 21st. At this point, we have 5 applications out, and I have a 6th one coming out tomorrow. They're all due between March 21st and March 23rd. So you want to try, if you think you're going to have a problem, and many people will, make sure that you're giving yourself enough time. Make sure you're giving yourself enough time to identify your problem. Make sure you're giving yourself enough time to reach a staff that might be also receiving a lot of phone calls from a lot of other people who are having a hard time as well. And so, as Maria said, there's not a whole lot that we can really do. And at 11:45, when this RFP is due, and these applications are due at 12, aside from sit with you and watch the clock tick. If you call us earlier, if you call, leave a message. You can email us. You can email. There's a number of ways that you can get to us. But there's nothing sadder, and we've all gotten to do this. There's nothing sadder than sitting on the phone with somebody who is having a problem that could not be resolved in the amount of time that we were given to try and help them resolve it. So we really want you to submit this stuff early because we can solve your problems, but we can't always solve them in 10 minutes. So that's that. In terms of technical assistance, there's lots. You can call me, you can email me. I will call you back or email you back within 24 hours of receiving the phone call. My contact information is at the end of this presentation. It is also in the RFP document as well. You can also make use of the e-procurement hotline at 312-744-HELP. The hotline operates during business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They sometimes have a little bit longer turnaround time. They also have a higher level of access. So sometimes if I can't resolve your problem, I will refer you to them. You can email questions if you don't like talking on the phone. You can email questions to customersupport@cityofchicago.org, or you can email them to me, and then we will write you back. There are also, if you don't like dealing with people at all, which is, I feel that way some days too, you can also look at training materials. at this web link. There are screenshots, there are videos. It's so much fun. You're going to wish that you had a career in procurement like me. And again, save often, submit early. And now we're going to go on to 2 things that you get to do in the e-procurement environment. You are going to accept an amendment and you're going to submit, or at least hopefully you're going to accept an amendment and submit, because I want all of you guys to submit so we can do your awesome ideas and applications. So all the questions that we're asking, right, you guys have been asking, we've been answering, are going to be translated into an amendment document with any additional clarifications that we might need to make about the RFP. That amendment document will be posted into the e-procurement website, platform as part of the application packet. And when we post that amendment, you will need to accept it. We also sometimes, if we need to extend the deadline, you will need to accept and we do an amendment for that. We do amendments for a number of things, but mostly it's to register a change that we want our applicant pool to know about thoroughly. So in this, we're going to go through how do you accept an amendment. It's a surprisingly lengthy set of screens, but we really at the City of Chicago want you to understand that we mean business about these amendments. We want you to be familiar with with the changes that we are outlining for you, and we want you to have mastered that material. So in this screen, if you didn't have an amendment, you just wanted to start your application, you would look over here at this pull-down menu on the right-hand side that says Actions. You would pull it and set it to create quote, and you would press Go, and that would start your application. In this case, you have not, the application has been amended, so you're going to hit View Amendment History, and when you click on that, and in e-procurement, anything that's in blue takes you to something else. That's why you don't have to use the back button. So you're going to hit this View Amendment History, and it's going to take you into this screen. In this screen, there are a couple of different things you can see. So if you want to just look at the RFP, you can go under the document here. There's this bar in the middle talks about the amendment description. It's like a 1 sentence telling you, like the preview to what you're going to see in the amendment. Under here, to review the changes, if you hit this little eyeglass or infinity sign, it's going to take you to the amendment document itself, where you can read all of the changes and all of the clarifications that we're providing for you. And when you're done with that, when you have mastered and read and understood what the amendment has to say to you, you're going to hit Acknowledge Amendments. You can do this at the upper or lower, upper or lower sides on the or corners on the right-hand side here. There's always, for whatever reasons, to an upper and a lower half the time in e-procurement, which sometimes makes sense if it's really a long document, but here it seems a little redundant. Anyway, when you hit your acknowledging, you're going to get to this screen. You're going to click the box accepting the terms and conditions of the RFQ and acknowledging the changes that were made. And then you're going to hit this thing that says acknowledge, because you have just acknowledged things. Then you're going to hit yes, that you confirm your acknowledgement of the amendment. I don't know why anybody would hit no, but they give you that option. But you're going to, if you hit no, it goes back to the page like this we just left. You're going to hit yes again. From there, you're going to accept the terms and conditions. So you're going to click down here that you've read and accepted the terms and conditions, and then you're going to click accept again on the upper or lower right-hand side, and then you will have accepted an amendment, and you probably are like a slightly better version of yourself for having done so. So, it's all about personal growth. So here you go. Now we're going to talk about how do you submit your application. So when you are ready to submit your application, you're going to save. Save. Why are you going to save? Because I am in charge of telling you how to do this, and I compulsively save when I'm working in this environment because that's just how I do. So you don't really actually have to save, but you do have to hit continue. And when you hit continue, e-procurement is going to scan the landscape of your application, and it's going to kind of go for low-hanging fruit things that it thinks you might have forgotten or not done correctly. And then it will give you error messages. And sometimes you'll get quite a few error messages, but most of them are pretty easy to solve. So we're going to go through the 2 most common ones. And if you just keep it, you remember what I've told you, you should be able to resolve your error messages and submit your application. And if not, call me, and you're going to call me like 3 days before the thing is due, so it's going to be beautiful. So here's the error message. It says the RFQ control requires you to quote on all lines. In DFSS, we ask you to upload an Excel spreadsheet budget. However, because the e-procurement system is doing procurement for everything from youth summer programs to paving the streets, other kinds of procurement require lines, which you can see here right below this little red box, the error message and stuff. It says lines. So when you get that message, you're going to click on lines. You'll see a whole bunch of places where you can put in numbers. You're going to put in your numbers. Put in any number you want. You can put in the numbers from your budget. You can put in lottery ticket numbers. You can put in your favorite number. You can put in one. Just put in a number. When you do that, the error message will go away. The second error message that people get is this: a quote value is required for requirement first name. In this case, requirements is e-procurement speak for your application questions. Each application question has a unique name. In this one is first name. And then the quote value is fancy e-procurement speak for answer. That thing that is capped at 4,000 characters, including spaces and punctuation. So in this case, e-procurement is telling you that you forgot to put an answer for the question, what is your first name? Happens all the time. So you're going to do that, and then that error message is going to go away too. So those are the two kind of most common errors that people have. There are others, but I think that you can figure it out, or you're going to call me, or you're going to call the e-procurement hotline, and we're going to get it done. So once your application is free from errors, you are ready to proceed and submit. So at this point, when you hit continue, instead of giving you error messages, it's going to get your application into the review and submit phase, which you'll see here. Here, notice off to the right, there's this printable view. Remember how I told you that e-procurement's going to suck away your application? You're not going to really be able to get at it again after you hit submit. So this is an opportunity for you to hit printable view, and it will download a PDF of your application. That is probably as good as it's going to get for e-procurement giving you your application. I'm sorry, it's not in a more workable or sort of manipulatable format, but PDF is what we got, and so this is where you can get your record there. So I highly recommend doing the printable view, saving it for your files, and then at least you have it, and then you can do your other stuff in a word processing program that isn't quite so rigid. So at this point, when you hit review and submit, you're going to just be able to scroll all the way through your application. You're going to be able to see what you've attached. You're going to be able to see all your answers or your quote values, as e-procurement likes to say. And then at the very bottom, it's going to require an electronic signature. You're going to put in your name and your title, and then you're going to click the little button that's above it. If you don't do it in that order, it will give you an error message telling you to do it in that order. And then you're going to look over to the right-hand side. I couldn't fit it all in one screen and have that screen be actually visible, have the letters visible to human eyes. So here we are on the other side, and you'll see there's this very exciting submit button, which we are going to click. And then you're going to get a confirmation page. So you're going to see the confirmation page. The e-procurement will send a confirmation email to the email associated with the account that you have made the application through within 24 hours. But I can see it instantaneously. You hit submit, I can see it. And so if you want a more instant confirmation or quicker confirmation, just email me or call me, and I will look it up and I will say, yes, you submitted. It's great, and I am so happy. Because those are like the best phone calls that I get to answer for the most part. I love telling people that they've submitted something correctly. It's so much better than having people call it 11:58 because they haven't been able to submit. So that is how you submit an application in e-procurement. This webinar will be available on the DFSS website along with the PowerPoint slides. Give us 3 to 5 business days for that to happen. You can call me or you can email me in the meantime if you want. Here, if you have program questions, this is how you get a hold of Maria. If you don't have program questions, but you want to talk about e-procurement stuff, this is how you get a hold of me. And now we can go back to do I see there's been more questions. We can kind of go back and do a little bit of a summarization of what's been going on while I've been chatting about e-procurement. So let's see. We looked at background checks. We were talking about prorating things. We were talking about the using budget for food. We're doing the CHA link, and really there are no more questions. It seems so.
Has come through.
Pardon?
No additional questions have come
Here.
through.
Oh, yeah. Now they're just coming through now, I think. Stipend CHA link. I'm not seeing any other questions. The last question I have was talking about the CHA link. Oh, do we need to complete a new registration for this bid if we already have login access? No, you please only have one iSupplier account. Your organization only needs one iSupplier account. Within the iSupplier account, there are many, you can have individual user accounts. So Sesame Street is your company. Ernie, Bert, and Big Bird all have access and all have their own unique accounts. So if you complete a new registration, you can apply under Ernie. If you're making 3 applications, though, you got to do it under Ernie, Bert, and Big Bird. Which budget line should we put things like fingerprinting, background checks, CPR certifications, etc.? Maria, I will.
Yes, we will add that information to the amendment.
Okay, and then am I understanding correctly that you anticipate awarding approximately 1 to 2 contracts per equity zone?
That is an estimate. We're not sure how many applications are going to come through, so it may be more than that.
I only see old bid information, having a hard time finding current bid information to begin the application. That is, I would highly suggest, this is what I've been telling people, go to the online bidding website, which is where you find all of our RFPs. When you look, there's a department, click on department. There's a little, it's a department in a blue field, and next to the word department, there's a little arrow, and it goes up or down. Click on that until you can click on it multiple times until it's pointing down, and then that will sort by all of the RFPs that are out by department, and then you'll see Department of Family and Support Services. They'll be more towards the top. It will be easier for you to find the bid information. I hope that makes sense. Are you accepting any programs that remotely operated, or do all programs need to be operated on a site?
That is in the RFP. All programs must be operated at a site. We are not doing virtual programming.
To clarify, the 30 youth can be any age mix from 6 to 18 years. Oh, I guess you answered that.
Yes, 6 to 21. And yes, they can be from different age groups.
I don't know, did I miss any questions while I was talking about my favorite thing, the e-procurement system? So let's see. Okay, so if can a class be taught virtually?
All programming should be in person.
If we'll leave this open for a minute, and Ms. Richardson, why don't we have that question offline about getting you into the iSupplier thing. And so I'm going to give a little more time to see if anybody has any questions that we can answer. Again, this is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the DFSS website. It will be reported. First, it will be posted on the YouTube channel, and then a link will be given to the DFSS, put on the DFSS website along with the webinar slides to the page connected with this particular RFP. So you can relive this time that we spent together. If you have interest in CHA, the CHA Summer Enrichment Program, that webinar is going to happen tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. We can spend some more time together. If you are an organization that is interested in providing housing or housing navigation or employment for returning citizens in Chicago, you can hit, we're doing the Housing Navigator webinar tomorrow also from 1 to 3, or if you just want to hear more about e-procurement. Here we go. Can your location be in your residence, being that I offer summer programming for my youth in my home daycare? All right. So you operate a program in your actual home.
All right, forgot to take myself off mute. As long as you are nonprofit, for-profit, faith-based, private, and public institution, you can apply. Look at page 19 for additional information about eligible respondents.
And the training did not talk about how to specifically fill out the budget form. There are budget instructions that talk about the cost category as part of the attachments associated with the application. And if you have specific budget questions, I highly suggest that you reach out to Maria, drop her an email, and she could do that. We don't really have any standalone training on how to do the budget form. It's fairly straightforward, and it aligns with federal cost categories. If you have any familiarity with doing other budgets for other programs you've applied for. So we try to be fairly transparent and straightforward and easy on that front. So, okay. I also would like to thank you all for coming this afternoon and listening about this awesome opportunity. And thank you for all of the work that you are already doing, because I know you guys are doing lots for the youth of the city of Chicago. It was a pleasure to be able to spend this time with you and to talk to you about the opportunities that we have coming up for further service. And and thanks to my really great colleagues in the youth division. I love working with them. They are always so open-hearted, gracious, smart, and organized. Like, what more could a person ask for, right? One last question. Comparing with the past years, is the number of organizations that you will fund more or less?
This is the first time we've separated our enrichment funding into different program models, and the number of slots that are allotted for this go-around is higher than has been funded in previous years. So we are looking to have more opportunities during the summer, knowing that there is a great need out there for young people to participate in quality programs.
Are there any final words that any of you guys would like to share?
Just thank you. Please read the RFP and email us with any questions. And thanks to Julia for all your help, and Liz as well.
Yes. Thank you, Liz. This was your first webinar with DFSS, and it was awesome to have you aboard. So other than that, stay out of the rain. If it's raining out, I don't know, because I am in a windowless office. But stay out of the weather, out of the rain. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, and we look forward to your questions and seeing your applications by noon on March 21st.